Chapter 1. Descent into Darkness. John, a 45-year-old man, had been living in the bustling city of New York for years. He had always nurtured the dream of having a little daughter, someone to whom he could give all his love. But fate had other plans for him. After years of unsuccessful attempts to have a child, one day a doctor told him that he could never become a father. This news struck him like a heavy blow to his soul. But this was not the end of his troubles. A few weeks later, during a medical examination, John discovered that he had cancer. Hearing this news plunged him into shock and disbelief. He felt as if the world had collapsed around him. When he shared this with his wife, Elizabeth, he expected her to stand by him through this difficult journey. However, Elizabeth, exhausted from years of failure and disappointment, decided to leave him. She packed her bags and left the house without looking back. John was left alone in a house that now felt cold and soulless. Days and nights he sat in darkness, staring at the ceiling. Empty bottles of alcohol were scattered around him. Each sip eased his pain slightly, but deepened his wounds. His mind was filled with unanswered questions. Why him? Why now? Why like this? One night, heavy rain was pouring, and the sound of thunder shattered the silent space of the house. John stood on the balcony, cold wind caressing his face, and raindrops landing on his forehead. He looked down at the empty street below. Dark thoughts flowed through his mind. Was this the end of the road? Should he put an end to this suffering? For a moment he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. A voice whispered inside him, "You've spent your entire life in fear and surrender. Others have always made decisions for you. Do you want your last decision to also be out of despair?" John opened his eyes. A tear rolled down his cheek. He said to himself, "Maybe there's still a chance. Maybe, for once, I can experience life the way I want." He stepped back inside from the balcony. Looking around, he saw a messy, chaotic home. He decided to make a change. He began collecting the empty bottles, pulled back the curtains to let the slender moonlight into the room. Running a hand through his disheveled hair, he looked into the mirror. A tired and withered face stared back. But there was a faint light in his eyes. He decided to put aside the alcohol and give himself another chance. He picked up a notebook and sat at the desk. With a trembling pen, he began to write, "Face my fears, pursue my passion for photography, travel to unknown places, help others, live without fear of judgment." With each word he wrote, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time in a long while, he felt hopeful. He decided that instead of surrendering, he would fight with all his might for his dreams. As the sun rose, John woke up. He pulled the curtains wide open and allowed the sunlight to fill the room. He put on clean clothes and went to the bathroom. Shaving his long beard and tidying his hair, he glanced at himself in the mirror. His face still showed signs of fatigue, but his gaze was determined. He was ready to face a new world, a world where he was the decision-maker, a world without fear and regret. John knew that the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in his life, he felt truly alive. Chapter 2. A Decision for Change. John went to the kitchen and prepared a simple breakfast, scrambled eggs and a cup of coffee. He remembered the last time he had breakfast. It had been weeks ago, perhaps. As he sipped his coffee, he glanced at the list he had written the night before. He carefully reviewed his wishes and resolved to approach them step by step. The first step was to free himself from the job that had kept him confined for years. A job that, while financially stable, had never allowed him to truly know himself or pursue his passions. He decided that today he would submit his resignation. He grabbed his bag and headed to the company. Along the way, he observed his surroundings, towering buildings, hurried people, the sound of car horns. But today, everything seemed to have a new color and aroma. It was as if the world had begun anew for him. Upon arriving at the company, he went straight to his boss's office, Mr. Walters. He knocked on the door and, after hearing permission to enter, stepped inside. Mr. Walters, a middle-aged man with a cold and serious demeanor, lifted his head from the papers and said, "John, is something wrong?" John replied with a calm smile, "Yes, I'd like to discuss something important with you." His boss raised an eyebrow in curiosity. "Go ahead, I'm listening." John took a deep breath and said, "I'd like to submit my resignation." Mr. Walters's expression changed to one of surprise. "Resignation? But why? We're in the middle of an important project, and you're one of our best employees." John responded firmly, "I've worked here for years, but I feel that this path is no longer right for me. I need to pursue my passions and change my life." The boss said in a dry tone, "This is a sudden decision. Has something happened? We can talk about it." John smiled gently. "No, there's no problem. It's a personal decision I've made after much thought." Mr. Walters shrugged slightly and said, "Very well, but know that the doors are always open for you. I hope you find success on your new path." John thanked him and left the office. He felt lighter, as if chains had been removed from his ankles. He returned to his desk, gathered his personal belongings, and said goodbye to his colleagues. Some looked at him with surprise. Others perhaps envied his courage to make such a decision. Leaving the building, he stepped out onto the street. The sun was shining brightly in the sky and a gentle breeze blew. John decided not to delay in pursuing his dreams. He headed to a photography equipment store. Upon entering, he felt like a child in a toy store, filled with excitement. He examined various cameras and eventually purchased a professional camera with multiple lenses. The salesman smiled and said, "Looks like you're going to become a great photographer." John laughed lightly. "I hope so. I've always been interested in photography but never had the chance to pursue it." The salesman replied, "It's never too late to start. Best of luck." With his new camera, he felt a world of possibilities opening up before him. He went to a nearby park and began taking photos of nature, birds, and people. Each photo he captured felt like he was expressing a part of himself. As he reviewed the images, he decided to travel, somewhere far from the hustle and bustle of the city, where he could see and capture the true beauty of the world. Returning home, he began researching different destinations. A developing country with rich culture but breathtaking natural beauty caught his attention. Nepal. Without hesitation, he booked a plane ticket and decided to begin his adventure there. He packed his backpack, camera, a few essential clothes, a notebook, and a book on starting small businesses. That night, he lay down on his bed. He gazed at the ceiling, a smile forming on his lips. He thought to himself, "This is the start of a new life. I won't let fear hold me back any longer." He closed his eyes and, with a sense of calm he hadn't felt in ages, drifted into sleep. Tomorrow was a new day, and he was ready to embrace it wholeheartedly. Chapter 3. The beginning of a new journey. John stood in the airport, backpack slung over his shoulder and his camera in hand. The sounds of flight announcements and the bustle of passengers filled the air around him, but he was lost in his own world. A mixture of excitement and a hint of anxiety surged in his heart. This was the first time he was embarking on a long solo journey. A ticket to Nepal rested in his pocket, a mountainous country full of mystery, which he had always dreamed of visiting. After hours of waiting, he boarded the plane. He sat by the window, and as the plane ascended, he looked down at the city. Beneath him, the towering buildings and crowded streets became tiny dots. He felt as if he was leaving his past behind and flying toward an unknown but thrilling future. During the flight, he read a book about the culture and customs of Nepal. He wanted to familiarize himself with the people there as much as possible and build connections. He also looked at the photos on his camera, pictures of the park, birds, and people he had taken the day before. He smiled and thought, "This is only the beginning." After several hours of flying, the plane landed at Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal. John retrieved his suitcase and headed toward the exit. The fresh, cool mountain air brushed against his face. Everything was new and astonishing to him, from the unique traffic patterns of the streets to the colorful clothing of the people. He checked into a small local hotel, a simple yet charming room with a view of the Himalayas. After a brief rest, he grabbed his camera and set out to explore the city. The bustling markets, ancient temples, and lively streets captivated him. Everywhere he looked, he captured the moment. Children playing, elderly men selling handicrafts, and Buddhist monks in saffron robes. During one of his strolls, he arrived at Durbar Square, where the history and culture of Nepal were on full display. While photographing an old temple, the sound of a child's laughter caught his attention. He turned toward the sound and saw a little girl with bright eyes, selling goods alongside her mother. John smiled and approached them. He greeted them in simple English. The little girl smiled shyly, and her mother replied. Pointing to the items they were selling, John asked, "How much for this bracelet?" The mother said, 10 rupees. John took the bracelet and paid her. Then he asked for permission to take their photograph. The mother nodded in agreement. He captured a beautiful image of the two, a picture that reflected love and simplicity. Afterward, John continued his exploration. At sunset, when the sun was sinking behind the mountains, he climbed a high hill to view the city from above. The orange and red hues of the sky, along with the sound of temple bells, created a dreamy atmosphere. He felt that he was in the right place, a place where he could truly live. That night, he returned to the hotel and decided to record a video for his YouTube channel. Sitting in front of the camera, he said, "Hello everyone. Today was my first day in Nepal, and I'd like to share my experiences with you." He spoke about the people, the culture, and how this journey made him feel. He hoped that his story could inspire others. The following days passed in a similar fashion. He traveled to remote villages, got to know the local people, and shared his photos and videos. Gradually, his number of followers on YouTube increased, and people from all over the world sent him messages. One day, he decided to go to a mountainous region to photograph its pristine landscapes. On the way, he saw the same little girl again, this time alone and carrying a heavy bundle. John approached her and asked, "Can I help you?" The girl replied with a smile, "Yes, thank you." He took the bundle, and together they walked toward her home. Along the way, he learned that the girl's name was Maya, and her mother was ill. She had to work to cover her mother's medical expenses. When they arrived at Maya's home, the harshness of their living conditions deeply affected John. A small, modest house without basic amenities. Maya's mother lay on a simple bed, her face tired. John felt compelled to act. He decided to help them. With Maya and her mother's permission, he shared their story on his YouTube channel, hoping to garner support. That night, he prepared an emotional video, asking people to help Maya and her mother if they could. The responses exceeded his expectations. Many people from around the world expressed sympathy and sent financial support. But John felt it wasn't enough. He wanted to create lasting change. He pondered how he could assist the local community to improve their living conditions. Chapter 4. Confronting Fears. After meeting Maya and witnessing the hardships of her life, John found himself deep in thought. He decided that before helping others, he needed to confront his own fears. One of his greatest fears had always been heights, a fear that had limited him for years. One morning, he said to himself, "It's time to leave this fear behind." He decided to visit one of Nepal's adventure parks, famous for its suspension bridges and exhilarating zip lines. Maya, curious, asked him, "Where are you going?" John smiled warmly and replied, "I'm going to face one of my biggest fears." "Would you like to come with me?" Maya's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Yes, I'd love to." They set off together toward the adventure park. Along the way, Maya shared her dreams. "I've always wanted to fly, like the birds." John chuckled softly. "Maybe today we both can fly." When they arrived, John gazed up at a tall suspension bridge stretching over a deep gorge. His heart pounded, and his palms grew clammy. Maya took his hand and said with a reassuring smile, "Don't be afraid. I'm right here with you." Her words brought him comfort. John approached the staff and asked for the necessary safety equipment. Maya held his camera, ready to capture the moment. As he stepped onto the bridge, a gentle breeze caused it to sway slightly. Each step tested his resolve, but with every deep breath, he felt a bit more courageous. Midway across the bridge, he paused and looked out at the vast surroundings. The breathtaking views of mountains and lush forests captivated him. Letting out a joyful shout, he spread his arms wide as if embracing the sky. From afar, Maya laughed and called out, "You did it, John!" Upon returning, John felt that he had not only conquered his fear, but also gained an invaluable experience. He turned to Maya and said, "Thank you for being by my side. I couldn't have done it without you." Maya blushed slightly and replied, "You were very brave." Their happiness, however, was short-lived. As they made their way back, John noticed Maya's employer, a harsh man named Raj, speaking to her sternly. "Where were you? Why weren't you at work?" Maya lowered her head and remained silent. John approached them and asked, "Is there a problem?" Raj glared at him and retorted, "This doesn't concern you. She needs to work." Feeling a surge of anger and concern, John tried to remain calm. "She's just a child. You shouldn't treat her like this." Raj scoffed, "If you want to play hero, mind your own business." He grabbed Maya's arm and pulled her back toward the shop. The scene deeply affected John. He couldn't remain indifferent. Back at the hotel, he spent the night reflecting. He decided to investigate Maya's situation and that of other working children. He discovered that many families, due to poverty and illness, were forced to send their children to work. The next day, John visited Maya's home and spoke with her mother, Sarita. "A kind woman weakened by illness," she explained softly. "I don't want Maya to work, but we have no choice. The cost of my treatment is too high." John felt compelled to act. He thought to himself, "If I can create a sustainable business that benefits this community, perhaps I can make a lasting difference." He shared his idea with some of the locals, proposing that the women establish food stalls showcasing their culinary talents, while the men sell handmade crafts and artisanal goods. John promised to attract investors and promote their products through his YouTube channel and social media. Initially, the villagers were hesitant, but seeing his genuine intent, they gradually placed their trust in him. Maya enthusiastically assisted, offering ideas and working closely with John. They faced numerous challenges, ranging from a lack of resources to bureaucratic obstacles, but John, driven by determination and passion, helped the community overcome them. He felt that his life had gained a new sense of purpose. As the sun set at the end of the day, John and Maya sat side by side, gazing at the beautiful landscape. Maya turned to him and said, "You've changed our lives." John gently placed a hand on her shoulder and replied, "And you've given me hope and inspiration." Chapter 5. Soaring in the Sky of Fame. After starting the project to help the local people, John continued his work with unparalleled motivation. He published new videos on his YouTube channel, sharing his experiences, the stories of the Nepalese people, and their handicrafts. These videos quickly gained worldwide attention, and his number of followers increased day by day. John had become a well-known figure in the virtual world. His videos not only showcased the beautiful landscapes of Nepal, but also addressed the problems and needs of the local people. The story of Maya and her mother, Sarita, touched the hearts of thousands. Many people became interested in helping in any way they could. John seized this opportunity to implement bigger ideas. He decided to launch an online store to sell Nepalese handicrafts and local products. With the help of Maya and other villagers, he collected a variety of products, from handmade bracelets to artworks and traditional clothing. Using his fame on YouTube, he introduced the store and asked his followers to support the people of Nepal by purchasing the products. The first orders poured in from all over the world. John and Maya eagerly packaged and shipped the orders. The proceeds were allocated to improving the living conditions of the local people. The village women produced the products with more motivation, and the men helped in sourcing raw materials and packaging. To expand the activities, John needed more investment. Using the connections he had made through YouTube and social media, he contacted several potential investors. He prepared a professional presentation for them that not only demonstrated the profitability of the business, but also emphasized the social and humanitarian aspects of the project. This approach had a profound impact on the investors, and they decided to invest in John's project. With the new capital, John was able to organize exhibitions and booths in major cities of Nepal and even in other countries. At these exhibitions, local products were displayed, and people became familiar with the culture and art of Nepal. This action not only helped increase sales, but also attracted media attention. Reporters interviewed John and published his inspiring story. In one of the interviews, he said, "I just want to bring the voice of the people here to the world. If each of us takes a step, we can create significant changes." Meanwhile, online sales were also rapidly growing. John's supporters from around the globe not only made purchases themselves, but also introduced the products to their friends and families. This supportive network led to a significant increase in the village's income. Maya and other children could now attend school and no longer needed to work. One day, while John was busy planning for an exhibition in Europe, he received a message from his ex-wife, Elizabeth. She had heard about John's successes and wanted to talk to him. John respectfully replied with a short message, explaining that he was now in a different stage of his life and focused on his projects and the people of Nepal. He did not want the past to affect his present and future. John continued his work with even more energy. With the help of investors, he established a small art center in the village where young people could learn artistic and professional skills. He also organized programs to improve the region's health and educational infrastructure. One of John's major achievements was holding an art exhibition in New York. He brought the handicrafts and artworks of the Nepalese people to the heart of America's metropolis, attracting the attention of art enthusiasts and critics. The proceeds from this exhibition were dedicated to building a school in the village. Online sales had also reached a level that required a professional team to manage them. John decided to train some of the talented local youths to manage the store. This action created more job opportunities for the people, making them feel independent and confident. In a small village, a cat named Whiskers discovered a magic fish in a pond. The fish promised 3 wishes in exchange for its freedom. Whiskers wished for endless fish, a cozy bed, and a bell that rang softly. The fish granted all 3 wishes and swam away, leaving Whiskers content and purring in the sun. Chapter 6. Challenges and doubts as the local business grew, and John's fame increased worldwide. Hope and optimism flowed through the village. People worked with renewed motivation, envisioning a brighter future for themselves and their children. But as successes grew, challenges and obstacles also emerged. One of the main problems was the jealousy and opposition of some people from neighboring villages. They felt that progress hadn't happened in their villages, and some even spread rumors about John's true intentions. They believed that he was only seeking personal gain and deceiving the people. These rumors gradually reached the ears of the people in John's village. Some villagers, especially those who hadn't trusted him from the beginning, started to have doubts. One day, Maya came to John sadly and said, "People are saying bad things. They say that you will leave us and take everything with you." John looked at Maya with concern and replied, "Who is saying these things? I have no such intention." Maya continued, "I believe in you, but some of my friends are worried." This situation upset John. He felt that all his efforts were being questioned. He decided to talk to the people and become aware of their concerns. In a public meeting, the villagers gathered. John said in a calm and sincere voice, "I am here to work with you, not for myself. We have reached this point together, and I will never intend to leave you. But if you have any worries or complaints, please share them with me." One of the elderly men of the village, named Ram, stood up and said, "We appreciate your efforts, but we fear that these successes are temporary, and after you leave, we will return to the same old situation." John smiled and replied, "I understand. That's why I want to transfer the skills and knowledge to you, so that you can progress without needing me. These projects belong to you, not me." After this conversation, many people felt better, but some still had doubts in their hearts. John decided to make more efforts to gain their trust. He held workshops to teach business management, marketing, and technical skills. He invited experts to teach the people and enhance their capabilities. Meanwhile, other problems emerged. The local government, due to the rapid growth of business in the village, demanded heavy taxes. This issue put a lot of financial pressure on the people, and some of them felt that they might not be able to continue their work. Maya said worriedly, "If we can't pay the taxes, what will happen to our work?" John replied confidently, "We will find a solution. We must not give up." He contacted his investor friends abroad and asked them for help. They offered to pay part of the taxes, but this solution was temporary. John thought deeply and came up with an idea. He decided to talk to the media and bring the story of the villagers and their problems to the ears of the world. He hoped that with public pressure, the local government would be forced to change its decision. John's interviews were broadcast in international media, leading to a wave of sympathy and support. People around the world sent messages and letters declaring their support. Under public pressure, the local government decided to reduce the taxes and even provided facilities to support John's projects. This victory brought new hope and motivation to the people. They realized that with unity and solidarity, they could overcome problems. John also felt that his efforts were not in vain and that it was worth continuing. Chapter 7. Unity and Achieving Greater Success. After overcoming previous challenges, the villagers trusted John and his projects more than ever. They realized that through cooperation and solidarity, they could create a better future for themselves and their children. John decided to expand the scope of activities. He suggested collaborating with neighboring villages to create a network of local businesses. This idea was well received, and representatives from other villages came for negotiations and planning. In joint meetings, they discussed their needs, capabilities, and goals. John acted as a coordinator, trying to consider everyone's interests. He said, "If we work together, we can target larger markets and make the best use of our resources." A man from one of the neighboring villages named Sandeep said, "At first, we thought you intended to take advantage. But now we see that your intentions are good. We are ready to collaborate with you." With the unity of the villages, production increased and more diverse products were offered to the market. Using his global network, John signed contracts with larger companies to distribute their products in international markets. Meanwhile, Maya, who had become an intelligent and energetic teenager, took on more responsibilities. She managed the online store and communicated with customers from around the world. John was proud of her and saw how her talents had blossomed. But successes did not come without challenges. Competing with large companies and dealing with strict trade regulations created a lot of pressure. John occasionally felt tired and discouraged, but the support and love of the people kept him going. One night, John was sitting in his small office, looking at documents and contracts. He had a severe headache, and his blurred vision worried him. He remembered his illness, which he hadn't thought about for some time. He decided to consult a doctor. After undergoing tests, the doctor told him worriedly, "John, your condition is worsening. You need to rest and undergo treatment." John asked anxiously, "How much time do I have?" The doctor hesitantly replied, "We don't know exactly, but you need to start treatment as soon as possible." This news shocked him. He didn't want all his efforts to remain unfinished. He decided to make a plan for the projects to continue without his presence. He gathered Maya and the others and said, "I might not be able to be with you for a while, but I want you to know that I trust you and I know you can continue the path." Maya, with tears in her eyes, asked, "What happened? Is there a problem?" John smiled and said, "I just need to rest a bit. But don't worry, I've entrusted everything to you." He handed over documents, contracts, and future plans to Maya and his team. Over the next few days, he tried his best to prepare them. He felt more severe fatigue, but didn't want anyone to notice. Meanwhile, the people of the village and neighboring villages continued their work with empathy and collaboration. They achieved more successes and felt that their dreams were coming true. One day, while John was hospitalized, he received a package from Maya. Inside the package was an album of photos and letters that the people had written for him. Among them was a letter from Maya. "Dear John, you have not only changed our lives but also showed us that with hope and effort we can achieve anything. We will always be grateful to you." As John read these letters, tears flowed from his eyes. He felt that his life had meaning and purpose. He whispered to himself, "This is what I wanted." Chapter 8. The Power of Love and Hope. After John's hospitalization, his condition worsened day by day. He could no longer engage in his daily activities as before, but his strong spirit and unbreakable will remained steadfast. Maya and his other friends visited him every day, spending hours with him. John's small room was filled with laughter and joy in their presence, as if the illness had no power against this wave of love and hope. One day, Maya entered John's room with a bright smile. In her hands were a bundle of letters and drawings from the village children. She said, "Look, John, everyone has written to you." John took the letters with surprise and joy and began reading them. The children had drawn beautiful pictures with their little hands, images of themselves playing, or pictures of John standing among them. In the letters, they thanked him and wished for his speedy recovery. Tears welled up in John's eyes. He said to Maya, "This is the most beautiful gift I've ever received." Maya sat beside him and said, "Everyone is waiting for your return. We need you." John smiled and replied, "I need you too. Your presence gives me strength." In the following days, the villagers decided to organize a grand celebration to show their appreciation for John. They wanted to demonstrate how much he meant to them. The villagers working together decorated the main square. The women cooked traditional foods, and the men built a stage for local music performances. On the day of the celebration, Maya and a few of her friends went to the hospital to bring John back to the village. The doctors were hesitant at first, but with Maya's insistence and assurance of proper care, they agreed. When John arrived in the village, his eyes sparkled with joy upon seeing the decorations and the gathering of people. He couldn't believe he had garnered so much love and affection. People welcomed him with applause and cheers. Children ran toward him, holding his hands. Maya guided him to the stage and handed him the microphone. A deep silence fell. John spoke, in a calm and heartfelt voice. "I don't know how to thank you. Your presence is the greatest blessing for me. You have shown me what life truly means." An elderly man from the village, Ram, stepped forward and said, "John, you have not only changed our lives but also given us hope and motivation. We can never repay your kindness." He then presented a small gift, a handcrafted statue depicting John shaking hands with the villagers. With tears in his eyes, John accepted the gift and said, "This means so much to me. I will always keep this moment in my heart." After the speeches, music and traditional dances began. Laughter and joy filled the village atmosphere. John sat among the people, enjoying their happiness. Maya sat next to him and said, "You know, you're really like a father to me. I hope you'll always be with us." John gently placed his hand on Maya's head and replied, "You are a light in my life, Maya. I always believe in you." In the weeks that followed, miraculously, John's health began to improve. The doctors were astonished, but John believed that the love and support of the people had given him strength. Gradually, he returned to his daily activities and continued his work with renewed energy. Together, Maya and John designed new plans to develop the village and help neighboring areas. Collaborating with the people, they built more schools and health centers and created new job opportunities. John felt that his mission was not yet complete. One day, John and Maya sat on the same high hill where John had first felt at peace, watching the sunset. John said, "Maya, life is full of wonders. I never thought my journey to Nepal would lead me down this path." Maya smiled and replied, "You taught us that with faith and effort we can achieve anything. We are lucky to have you with us." Looking toward the future with hope, John said, "And I'm lucky to have you all. Let's continue building a better world together." Hello, I am the author of this story and the creator of this video. In our beliefs, ending one's life by oneself is an unforgivable sin. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Death is like a cocoon, and you are like a butterfly. This cocoon is created by our actions. Initially, I intended for John to die at the end of the story, but then I changed my mind. The miracle of his recovery from cancer is attributed to love, passion, and most importantly, purpose. Do you have a reason to continue your life? Do you know what John's reasons were? Certainly, Maya was the daughter John always wished to have. However, he strived so hard not to revert to the person he used to be. For example, a monotonous life, severe arguments with his wife, problems at the office, and alcoholism. He always felt that something was not right, and finally managed to achieve it with focus and hard work. What are your reasons? A good or bad family, a good or bad past, acquiring valuable things like money, respect, and love, proving yourself to yourself, or even to others. What are your real reasons for not ending your life and continuing to live and achieve everything in life? Write and comment them for me. I read all of them, and be sure that paying attention to the good things in your life and avoiding negative aspects will bring joy and goodness to your life.